were two brothers, Terry and Jerry. Terry was the older brother who had established himself quite well. He went to Harvard and studied law. He was a very well-known prosecutor. If you needed a case to be handled easily, Terry was your guy. He lived the American dream truly. He drove a nice car, a black Rolls-Royce Ghost with an all-white interior. His suits were custom tailored from Tom Ford. His home was beautiful. It had large glass windows with a beautiful, fresh, white coat of paint. It was located in a gated community amongst the celebrities of Beverly Hills. He had a live-in chef who made the best food you could ever imagine. He always awoke to the smell of pancakes with fresh strawberries, blueberries, or maybe even, when he felt like cheating a little bit on his diet, chocolate chips. He had a beautiful wife and two amazing children. He loved them dearly and was so proud of all that he had accomplished. Jerry was a slightly different story. Jerry was more of a blue-collar worker. He didn't go to college right after high school. He found himself joining the military, the Navy to be exact. In the Navy, he worked on ships. He learned the mechanical work of how to repair and build different parts of the ships, should something fail. After he got out of the Navy, he moved back home to where they had grown up, Jackson, Tennessee. He went home to be with their mother, who had a unique name, Bria. He started his own local business where he would fix small engines. Unlike his brother, he drove a 1994 Ford F-150. He took good care of it, but it didn't have all the bells and whistles like his brother's car. He had a pretty standard blue-collar closet, plenty of blue jeans, plenty of t-shirts, and a trusty pair of work boots. He lived at home with his mom. She was approaching the age of 87 and had a hard time doing things on her own. She had become quite feeble and frail in her older age, and Jerry always had a soft spot for dear old mom. He always woke up and cooked breakfast for the both of them. Nothing too fancy. Eggs, sunny side up, bacon, toast, and a nice cup of Folgers coffee. One day, Jerry called his brother. He told him the news about how his mom had passed, and he was making plans for a funeral arrangement. He said that he would appreciate some help if Terry could take some time away from work. Without hesitation, Terry booked a flight from Los Angeles to Jackson's local regional airport, flying first class where he could. They worked together to make preparations for the funeral when they had an interesting conversation with their mother's attorney that was in charge of her will. The house had been left to Jerry, which Terry had no issues with. But what was left to both of them was something that was both shocking and puzzling to both of them. It was a treasure map with a letter that read, "Well, boys, if you are reading this, then I am no longer with you. I just want you to know how much I love both of you. I know you two have done and will do amazing things with your lives. But there is just one thing that I wish for you two to do together, regardless of what stage you are at in your lives. I've left a treasure map to the both of you. It is a map that has been passed down in my family for generations and generations. My family was convinced that what awaited at the location of this map was a treasure unlike any other. I wish you both the best of luck as you start your adventure. Just know that Mom loves you, and that even though I am not there physically anymore, I'm with you both always in your hearts." "Well, what do you suppose we do?" asked Jerry. "Well, I suppose we start chasing after this apparent unique treasure," was Terry's response. Jerry dropped everything and quickly packed a bag to get ready for their adventure. Terry had a hard time. The truth was that he didn't know what he was going to tell his wife. How was he supposed to explain that he would have to take off of work? And how was he supposed to explain that it could be a long time before he and his brother made it back? What if he never came back? Based on the map, it seemed they would be heading to somewhere in South America. This could be a very long, long treasure hunt. Was the treasure waiting for them at the end of the journey even worth leaving his family behind? He couldn't be sure. After a heated exchange between him and his wife about how silly this whole expedition was, Terry was faced with two options, but only one ultimatum. He could choose his wife and kids and take the next flight to Los Angeles and miss the hunt with his brother. Or he could lose his wife forever. The decision was somehow easy and difficult, all at the same time. Jesus has a story that plays out in a somewhat similar fashion. If you have your Bibles, please turn with me to Matthew chapter 13. We can go ahead and put that up on the screen. It says this: "The kingdom of heaven is like the treasure buried in a field that a man found and reburied. Then in his joy, he goes and sells everything he has and buys that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of fine pearls. When he found one priceless pearl, he went and sold everything he had and bought it." Jesus tells a couple of stories. And he says, this is what the kingdom of heaven is like. It is like a treasure that's buried in a field. Somebody is going through this field and they stumble upon this treasure and they dig it up, look at it, examine it, and then they rebury it. That's interesting, isn't it? Why would somebody dig up a treasure only to rebury it? Surely you must think to yourself, as I did preparing this sermon, why not just keep the treasure? Why would I bury it back into the ground? Why would I risk somebody else finding it? The answer is that it's not his field. You see, this man, this farmer, this person, we're not too entirely sure what kind of person Jesus is exactly describing, but this person has no claim to the treasure that he finds. So what's the solution? He sells every single thing that he owns. Everything. The house, the car, not that they had cars, but the local horse, the most beautiful horse, donkey, some method of transportation. He sells that. Sells his animals. Sells his crops, his harvest. Maybe he was a blacksmith. He sells every single piece of equipment that he's been working on. All of it has to go, all in an effort to acquire this one piece of land. Not because of what the land is worth, but because of the one thing of treasure that was found. We're not even entirely told what kind of treasure this is. We don't know if it's a chest of treasure. We don't know if it's a bunch of gold coins. We don't know if there's a bunch of diamonds and rubies and all of these precious gems. We're not really told what is in the treasure. The only thing that we know is that it was worth losing everything for. In the second story, the kingdom of heaven is like a priceless pearl. And a merchant who specializes in buying pearls finds it and analyzes its value. After realizing that it's priceless, he sells everything that he has to acquire this one pearl. Now, I want you to think about that. A merchant who specializes in pearls. Imagine how many pearls he has. He specializes in them. He collects them. My guess is that he has many, many different, beautiful pearls. So why would he get rid of all of them just to have one? Well, according to his assessment, this one pearl was so invaluable that it was worth selling every single pearl that he already had just so he could have it. The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure. It's like a pearl. And it's worth losing everything for. What I find interesting is that Jesus is telling this story, and among his listeners are his disciples. You know, the ones that decided to give up everything to follow him. Such disciples as Simon and Andrew. In Matthew chapter 4, verse 18 through 20, it says this. As he was walking along the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, who is called Peter, and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. Follow me, he told them, and I will make you fish for people. Immediately, they left their nets and followed him. And then James and John, picking up in verse 21. Going on from there, he saw two other brothers, James the son of Zebedee and his brother John. They were in a boat with Zebedee, their father, preparing their nets, and he called them. Immediately, they left the boat and their father and followed him. Those are interesting sacrifices, are they not? Simon and Andrew, humble fishermen. The nets that they used was their entire lifestyle. It was everything that they knew. It was how they paid the bills. It was how they kept the roof over their heads. It was how Simon Peter fed his family. Who in their right mind would give that up to go and follow a teacher with no disciples? These people, they saw value in something that Jesus talked about and something that he claimed to be. They're not the only ones. We see Matthew's call in Matthew chapter 9, verse 9. It says this. As Jesus went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax office. And he said to him, "Follow me." And he got up and followed him. Matthew was a tax collector. James, John, Simon, and Andrew, they're all fishermen. They all make a very humble, blue-collar wage. Not Matthew. It's not the kind of job that Matthew has. by the Roman government to do so, and admittedly, he gets paid a lot of money. Matthew is probably one of the wealthiest of the disciples that chooses to follow Jesus. So not only do the blue-collar workers leave everything behind, Simon and Andrew, they leave behind their work. James and John leave behind their work, but they also leave behind their father. Matthew leaves behind a life of luxury and comfort to follow a man who at this point only has a handful of disciples. What is it about Jesus that makes him worth following? Personally, I believe that it's who Jesus claims to be. And I believe it's his message about the coming kingdom. And more specifically, as Matthew chapter 13 puts it, I believe it's about the kingdom of heaven, which is a treasure worth the entire sacrifice of everything that we have. I wish I could say that every single person who ever encountered Jesus felt the exact same way as his disciples. But I think you and I both know that that's not exactly the case. We come across the story of the rich young ruler. He most certainly did not. Matthew chapter 19, verse 16 through 22, it says this. If we go ahead and put that up. Just then, someone came up and asked him, "Teacher, what good must I do to have eternal life?" "Why do you ask me about what is good?" he said to him. "There's only one who is good. If you want to enter into life, keep the commandments." "Which ones?" he asked him. Jesus answered, "Do not murder. Do not commit adultery. Do not steal. Do not bear false witness. Honor your father and your mother. And love your neighbor as yourself." "I have kept all of these," the young man told him. "What do I still lack?" "If you want to be perfect," Jesus said to him, "go, sell your belongings and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come and follow me." When the young man heard that message, he went away grieving because he had many possessions. Admittedly, from the story, we're not exactly told whether or not this man ever comes and decides to follow Jesus and sell all of his possessions. We're not really told. But based off of what Jesus tells us about rich people and how it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter heaven, we can probably draw a pretty good conclusion that this man went away sad and did not choose to sacrifice all that he had. That is simple material wealth, material possessions. Similar to Matthew, this person has a lot of money. Matthew chooses to give it all away and follow Jesus. This person chooses to keep it for himself, and he walks away from the treasure that he would never come to know. But what about people who it's not just about wealth? What about people who are told to give up other things rather than material possessions? We see a couple of interesting encounters. And Jesus gives a very seemingly apathetic response. In Matthew chapter 8, verse 18 through 20, it says this. When Jesus saw a large crowd around him, he gave the order to go to the other side of the sea. A scribe approached him and said, "Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go." Jesus told him, "Foxes have dens, and birds of the sky have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head." That's one account. The next, Lord, another one of his disciples said, first let me go and bury my father. But Jesus told him, follow me and let the dead bury their own dead. Those are interesting instructions. When we read this story, it kind of seems that Jesus does not care about personal feelings. It kind of seems that as people grieve, as people are wanting to follow him, it seems that he does not really truly care about what personally bothers him. That can't be further from the truth. This scribe, he wants to follow Jesus, and he tells him, teacher, I will go wherever you go. And Jesus' response is, well, foxes have dens, birds have nests, but me, I have no place to lay my head. So you say that you will follow me, but are you willing to not know where you're going to be staying that night? Are you willing to go through life with a lot of uncertainty? Are you willing to not know what the next step is? Am I worth it to you? The implication is that this scribe walks away and chooses a life of comfort. But what about the other disciple? The one who simply wants to have a funeral for his father. Surely Jesus would understand that, right? I mean, how insensitive could Jesus possibly be? To ask somebody not to bury their own father. But essentially, Jesus' response is, follow me and let the dead bury their own. Your father is no longer with us. Follow me instead. What an interesting command. Seemingly heartless. But the point behind the command is not to be mean, and it's not to be rude. The purpose behind this command is that Jesus wants to know what truly lies in the heart of this person who wants to follow him. Would you be willing to walk away from your family in order to follow Jesus? Are you willing to give up everything you have and sacrifice it all for the kingdom of heaven? This brings us to our point for the sermon, and it's this. The kingdom is worth the sacrifice. The message that Jesus proclaims to each and every one of us is that we must be willing to deny ourselves in order to follow him to the furthest extent. And the reward, which is the kingdom of heaven, is worth every single possible thing you and I can give up on this earth. There is not a human relation, there is not an amount of money that is worth losing the kingdom over. That's the point that Jesus is seeking to make in this parable. The kingdom is worth the sacrifice. Together, the two brothers headed off. They hopped on a flight from Jackson and found themselves landing in Ecuador. Terry couldn't help but wonder if he had made the right choice. He had left his wife and children in the States so that he could go on this seemingly wild goose chase looking for a treasure located in South America. But he decided to trust his mother. He knew that he and his brother could have a wonderful time and fulfill the desire of their mom. Jerry had feelings of nervousness. He had never done anything like this before. It was a little easier for him to leave things behind, but that's not what was important. He was hoping that the journey and the reward would be worth it. He was worried about his brother. He knew that it couldn't have been easy to leave his family, and so he made sure to reassure Terry every chance that he got. He would tell him about how he was so excited to venture out together, and about how he knew Mom would love that they decided to find this treasure. They found themselves deep in a forest. They could hardly see the sky through the canopy that was above them. They were getting tired of walking and tired of looking. They heard a waterfall not too far from where they were, and they traveled there. They rinsed all of the dirt and sweat and grime from their bodies. They tried to become as refreshed as they possibly could so that they could continue the journey to the treasure. As they continued the search, they came across a subtle-looking cave. They looked at their map, and if they didn't know any better, it would seem to have a mark exactly where this cave was. They went in and turned on their flashlights. As they wandered through the small cave, they came across a chest. They opened it, and what they found surprised them. They found a chest full of gold. There were gold coins, gold rings, gold necklaces, and more. There were jewels, rubies, diamonds, sapphires, emeralds, and more. But the most surprising thing that they found was nothing shiny, nothing polished, nothing that glimmered. It was an old book. They dusted it off, and it revealed two words: Holy Bible. Attached to the Bible was a note, and it read, "For many years I have chased material wealth. As a pirate, I stole from merchant ships as well as ships carrying simple passengers. I would take what I wanted when I wanted. I did not discriminate against my victims. I stole from the rich, and I stole from the poor. I stole from the saints, and I stole from the heathens. But on one occasion, I stole a book that I was told was valuable. A lowly monk was traveling with it, and when I grabbed the book from his hands, he told me that there was nothing on the ship that was more valuable. He begged for it back. I kept it, and I began to read it, and I began to change. I realized that my life had been awful. My actions had been inhumane. I was in need of a cleansing that I could not provide myself. Through this book, I found where it could come from. So a note to whoever finds this treasure. I wish you to know that out of all the gold and the precious stones in here, what you hold now in your hands is more valuable than the whole lot." Signed, Black Sam Bellamy. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day that you've given us. God, we thank you for your Son, who came and told some decently confusing stories. God, I thank you for the hearts of your disciples who decided to pass on the knowledge of your kingdom. God, we thank you for your Son. We thank you for his sacrifice on the cross all those years ago, so that we can be saved. God, I pray that as we leave from here, we would all remember the message that your kingdom is worth the sacrifice. No matter what we have to give up in our lives, whether it's habits, status, wealth, possessions, God, whatever it may be, I pray that we would willingly place it before your feet, because your kingdom is worth it. God, we love you, and we thank you. And it's in your Son's name that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
As per usual, this will be the time of invitation. I'll be down front. If you have Any prayer requests, any decisions that you would like to make, this will be the time to do so as the band comes and leads us in one final song.